And while I do appreciate the fact that Vanishing Earth doesn't try to reinvent the Star Soldier formula into an ill-fitting 3D space like some other series tried and just stuck with what brought the series to the dance as it were, case in point, Aerofighters, released in 1997 for Nintendo 64, courtesy of Paradigm Entertainment, otherwise known as the people who brought you Pilot Wing 64, so surely this must be good, right? Right, so Aerofighters, aka Sonic Wings, began life as a series of vertical scrolling shooters where you picked one of several planes and blew up lots of shit while collecting power-ups to build up your massive arsenal of destruction. The game proved popular enough to warrant 2 sequels on Neo Geo, a 32-bit remixed version, and just last year there was Sonic Wings Reunion, which is the latest retro throwback thing. And then there's the curious case of Aerofighters Assault, the sole 3D entry in the series, and also the last game before developer Video System filed for bankruptcy, and that's all she wrote, I suppose. Which I guess made Aerofighters Assault the game that effectively killed Sonic Wings for almost 3 decades now until the recent revival game. Now I know of Aerofighters, I played the first game on Super Nintendo ages ago, and it was a fun little shooter thing, so one day I pick up this loose cart out in the wild and I figure, oh cool, that shooter thing in arcades and Neo Geo now on N64. Should be fun. But unlike Star Soldier's foray on N64, which mostly stuck to the script and kept a 2D overhead shmup, Aerofighters Assault decides, nah son, we're going to turn this into an arcade flight sim thing and people are going to like it or else. And then the answer turned out to be, or else. The game gives you 4 planes to choose from, each with their own pilot, weapons, and other capabilities worth mentioning. There are also other hidden planes you could unlock under certain conditions. Assault gives you a couple modes of play. Aside from the main campaign of 11 missions and a couple bonus missions that you could access with certain conditions, there is also a practice mode where you can acclimate yourself to this newfangled control scheme on a practice course, which has you flying through rings. You know, like that one game there. Or you could practice against enemy planes or bosses, which is nice. There's also a boss mode that lets you fight bosses you've already defeated in the main game, and there's 3 difficulty settings which determines the overall challenge as well as the number of credits you have available to complete the main game. And finally, there's an option for normal flight controls or novice flight controls. Novice is supposed to make the flying easier to manage, but is also fairly limited in how much you actually can move the ship around, to the point where the game will sometimes take over control of your plane to do certain stunts. So really you're better served learning to control the plane normally, which can be a tall order at first, but you give it more free reign over barrel rolls, U-turns, and other such maneuvers, so you're probably better off. The game also allows for button customization for the most ideal setup, which is much appreciated because I don't care for the default layout, and also maybe it's just me, but I find controls to be a bit sluggish at times, more so with the novice because that's intentionally limiting, but even on normal, there are moments where the control stick doesn't seem quite as responsive or as smooth as I would like. Rare moments because otherwise they seem to work fine, but I don't know, something doesn't quite click with me here. But I suppose we should dive into gameplay, which is modeled to be an arcade-style flight sim shooter thing. You control a plane, you have guns, you have missiles, both of which have unlimited ammo but do have a cooldown period after each firing, so take that into account. A special weapon of sorts which you can deploy 2 per life, and a limited number of defensive countermeasures such as mines and things of that nature. All of these things change depending on the plane that you're flying. For the most part, missions have you attempting to take out a boss ship within a time limit, though sometimes you're also charged with defending some other component or you're doing escort missions or other such goals. Sometimes after completing certain tasks within a certain mission or whatever, you'll play bonus missions, which are special little things. Whenever you crash into something, you'll respawn at the cost of some health, and if you die, you can continue so long as you have credits left over. The game does keep track of your progress so that you can continue at a later time because there is a save feature on this, but only so long as you have credits left over. Once they're all gone, it's back to the beginning, and oh well. Aerofighters Assault fluctuates between above average flight sim fare and frustrating slog. Sometimes whenever you continue after a loss, you'll continue where you left off during a mission, but other times you'll restart the mission from scratch and I'm like, ugh. Go one way or the other, I don't care either way, but pick one, don't go back and forth, that's kinda sloppy. I mentioned the controls being a bit sluggish at times, and sometimes the frame rate will also be a bit helter-skelter. Sometimes it's nice and smooth, other times it's choppier than a chop party. And then there's the issue with the game feeling so lethargic, I'm wondering if this N64 is about to melt because of the overwhelming power of Mau Mau, who you could unlock with a code, which is nice. Also hidden in the game is Spanky the Dolphin, which you can unlock by completing all the missions in this game, including the bonus ones, and that's where I'm like, yeah, no thanks, I think I've got my share, and honestly, I was kinda getting bored with this one. Give me something like a Star Fox or a Rogue Squadron where gameplay feels a bit snappier over Aerofighters' sleep-inducing fare and its somewhat repetitive missions, whose difficulty spikes bounce between brain-dead simplicity and I want to go home and rethink my life hardcore. And you can use your imagination to decide what that actually entails. Oh, and speaking of which, the last level has you flying through a tunnel to blow up a core. You know, like that one game there. Not gonna hold it against it, though. And there's a 2-player deathmatch mode where you and a friend can play a bunch of planes and try to blow each other up, which is always a fun time, methinks. You'll probably have more fun with that than the actual single-player game, but that's just me. By the way, did I mention that you have wingmen in this game who help you out? Well, you have wingmen who help you out, supposedly. They show up, they shoot a couple things, you hear a couple messages that tell you they're taking care of stuff, but I don't know. I wish there was a way you could give these wingmen specific commands to do specific things like target a certain enemy or cover my ass while I'm taking out a boss. You know, like in Wing Commander or an X-Wing, but I guess that's outside this game's purview or something. Oh well, missed opportunity there. So yeah, oftentimes Assault suffers from an uneven frame rate, meaning when things get hectic, the action starts to stutter and look exceedingly choppy, which hinders gameplay considerably. And it's a bit of a shame because some of the model work for the planes and vehicles aren't too bad looking. Sure, the terrain might have a bit of a low quality feel to it and the colors are not all that spectacular, but the ship models aren't too shabby. I've certainly seen worse looking models in a Nintendo 64 game. I do like that you have different camera angles to check out surrounding terrains, as well as switching between third-person and first-person views. I mean, when the stars align, the game looks fine. I just wish it played as well as it looked. On the bright side, though, I think the music is top-notch arcade shmup fare. Yeah, there's a couple duds in there, sure, like in any soundtrack, but for the most part, you've got some nice, frantic, action-sounding tunes that get you pumped for a hot night of fireworks. That doesn't seem to be found here, unfortunately. The sound effects are also fairly decent quality with some nice-sounding explosions, and there's even a bit of voice acting that sounds, well, it goes about as well as you'd expect a game of this ilk from this era to go, so make of that what you will, I suppose. So I hope you'll forgive the usual cliche when it comes to reviewing underwhelming titles, but I really wanted to like Aerofighters Assault. I can forgive the shift from fun 2D shmup thing to 3D arcade flight sim thing if the transfer was done well, and sometimes there's inklings, just inklings, of a good game to be found here. But on the other hand, there's the occasional sluggish controls, the uneven frame rate, the generally repetitive and grossly unbalanced missions, and otherwise lethargic pacing. It's one of those games that, with a few tweaks to fix the various issues or possibly port this to beefier hardware like a Dreamcast or something, could have been a pretty sweet flight game. But as it is now, if you can put up with some of the glaring issues, Aerofighters Assault is a playable enough, possibly enjoyable to a degree little flight game, but unfortunately it's not one of the better ones, and really even on Nintendo 64, you do have better options.